The lights are almost blinding, but not enough to obscure the vastness of the auditorium, packed with expectant faces. It's the National Innovation Awards, the pinnacle for someone in my field, and my name, U. Arium, has just echoed through the speakers. Millions are watching this live broadcast, they tell me. My gaze, however, isn't on the presenter or the gleaming trophy. It sweeps to the VIP section, row 3, seat 5. Empty. Dad's seat. Even now, in this second life, with a chance to do it all differently, he's chosen a business meeting. A familiar ache, cold and sharp, spreads through my chest. It's the ghost of a pain I knew so well in my first life. The sting of him missing my university graduation for a critical merger. But this time, a slow smile curves my lips. The director, cued by my publicist, signals a camera. It pans gracefully, lovingly, to that empty chair, the beautifully printed placeholder card clearly visible. Chairman Lee, Father of the Year. Let the nation see. I smooth down my dress, the silk cool beneath my fingers, and accept the award with practiced grace. My revenge, you see, is already in motion. Let him explain to his board, his investors, his adoring public, why his Father of the Year award plaque is gathering dust while his daughter collects national accolades alone. He always said, "I'm doing this for your future, Arium." That was his mantra, the well-worn excuse that covered every missed birthday, every school play where my eyes searched for him in vain, every parent-teacher conference attended only by mom, and later, only by myself. My first life was a highlight reel of his absences, each one a small chisel chipping away at something inside me. He was building his empire, Lee Corp, from the ground up, and I was apparently the future beneficiary who had to understand the present sacrifices. The public knew Chairman Lee as a devoted family man, a philanthropist who often spoke of legacy and the importance of nurturing the next generation. The magazines ran glossy photos of him at charity galas, sometimes with Mina, my older sister, on his arm if mom wasn't available. Never me. I wasn't photogenic enough, Mina once said, too intense. The reality was a string of sterile hotel rooms where I'd wait for him after he'd squeezed me in between appointments, the air thick with the cloying, expensive scent of his signature cologne, a scent I now associate with disappointment. After my university graduation in my first life, the one he missed for that critical merger, he'd arrived at my small celebratory dinner 2 hours late. He'd enveloped me in a hug that smelled of that cologne and pressed a ridiculously expensive watch into my hand. "Congratulations, pumpkin," he'd said, his voice booming, as if his presence alone was the real gift. See, all that hard work paid off for both of us. This time, for the National Innovation Awards, I'd seen his calendar. I'd made sure of it. He'd meticulously scheduled a critical negotiation with foreign investors smack bang in the middle of the ceremony. It wasn't an oversight, it was a choice. He'd look me in the eye later, offer that same cologne-scented hug, and tell me how proud he was, how this award was a testament to his sacrifices. Why did he really avoid my ceremony? It wasn't just about business. He'd attended Mina's piano recitals, her art gallery openings, even her graduation from a culinary school she'd attended for all of 6 months before declaring it uninspiring. What was it about my achievements that made him uncomfortable? Was it because they were mine, truly mine, built outside the shadow of Lee Corp, in a field he didn't quite understand and therefore couldn't quite control? The question hung in the air, as heavy and suffocating as his cologne. Mina, my perfect poised older sister. She was everything I wasn't, effortlessly charming, classically beautiful, and adept at navigating the treacherous currents of our family's social circle. She was also a master of the subtle undermining, the kind that left you questioning your own sanity. I remember the phone call just hours before the award ceremony. I was a bundle of nerves pacing my apartment. "Arium, darling," Mina's voice, smooth as silk, purred through the phone. "I just spoke to Dad. He's so swamped with that KTC deal. He feels terrible, of course." I'd gripped the phone tighter. "He's not coming?" Even though I'd planned for it, a tiny, stupid flicker of hope died. "Well, it's just a small award, isn't it? Impressive for your little field, of course, but he has an empire to run. Don't worry about him. You go enjoy your moment. Your little moment. When my name was announced and the camera inevitably found Mina in the audience, she'd never miss a chance to be seen at such an event, especially if Dad wasn't there to outshine her. Her smile was a masterpiece of practiced delight, but I knew that slight tightening around her eyes, the almost imperceptible thinning of her lips, jealousy. It radiated off her in waves only I, her lifelong target, could truly feel. During my short acceptance speech, thanking the committee and my research team, my phone buzzed on the podium. A text from Mina. Enjoy your little moment of fame. Try not to look so overwhelmed. It's not a good look. Later, as a small scrum of reporters gathered around me, asking about my innovation, I heard it. The distinctive click-clack of Mina's ridiculously expensive heels walking away. She'd expected them to flock to her, the beautiful daughter of Chairman Lee gracing the event with her presence. The fact that they were more interested in my little award was an insult she couldn't bear. What did Mina gain from sabotaging me? It wasn't money or power, not directly. She had plenty of both, or at least access to them. It was something more insidious. She needed to be the brighter star. My successes, independent of the family name, dimmed her glow. And Mina Lee did not like to be dimmed. Gia, we'd been best friends since university. She was the one who understood the pressures of a high-achieving family, or so I thought. Now, watching her in my mind's eye from my first life, her betrayal tasted like ash. At every industry event, Gia would be there, her arm linked through mine. "Ariam, congratulations," she'd whisper, her eyes bright and assessing, already scanning the room over my shoulder for more influential connections. She had a sixth sense for who was currently hot and who was not. She'd maneuver us into photos, always positioning herself slightly forward, her smile dazzling, ensuring she was in the frame with the right people. Me, the quiet, brainy one, and her, the charming, networked one. We were a package deal, or so she made it seem. The business proposal incident still burned. It was my idea, a revolutionary concept for sustainable tech that I'd poured months of research into. I'd shared it with Gia, my trusted confidant, over too many late-night coffees. 2 weeks later, at a major industry pitch competition, there was Gia on stage, presenting my proposal, slightly tweaked, rebranded, but unmistakably mine. She'd won, of course. The acclaim, the funding, the mentorship opportunities all went to her. I remembered the sting of the champagne she'd handed me at the after-party. "To our success, Ariam," she'd chirped, her eyes glittering. The champagne had tasted oddly sweet, almost cloying. Later, I'd felt dizzy, disoriented. My carefully prepared congratulations to her had come out slurred, making me look like a sore loser who'd had too much to drink. It was only in my second life, with clarity I hadn't possessed then, that I realized the sticky sweetness probably masked something else. Something to ensure my reaction was anything but graceful. And then there was the recording. In my first life, after a particularly galling instance of Dad prioritizing a golf game over a critical presentation I was giving, I'd vented to Gia. Frustrated, hurt, I'd said things about Dad, about his business, things a loyal daughter shouldn't. Gia had listened so sympathetically, nodding, offering tissues. Later, I found out she'd secretly recorded every word, a little insurance policy perhaps. Or maybe just a juicy bit of gossip to share with the right people at the right time. Or worse, a weapon to deliver straight to Dad, painting me as ungrateful, unstable. What happened in my previous life that made her betrayal so painful? It wasn't just the stolen proposal or the recording. It was the slow, dawning realization that our entire friendship had been a transaction for her. I was a stepping stone, a connection to the Lee family wealth and influence. My genuine affection and trust had been nothing more than assets for her to exploit. The memory of her earnest gaze, her shared laughter, now felt like shards of glass in my heart. Professor Park. He had been my academic advisor, a man whose intellect I had once deeply admired. He cultivated an image of a stern but fair mentor, dedicated to bringing out the best in his students. In my first life, his guidance had always felt off. He'd praise my work in private, then subtly steer me towards less ambitious projects, less impactful research areas. "Patience, Ariam," he'd say, his voice a low rumble. Build a solid foundation. Don't try to run before you can walk. Meanwhile, other students, arguably less talented but perhaps more compliant, were given opportunities to shine, their research fast-tracked, their names appearing on papers alongside his. He had a knack for blocking my industry connections. A guest lecture I was invited to give? Suddenly canceled due to scheduling conflicts he'd foreseen. An internship at a leading research firm? The position was mysteriously filled just before my interview, an interview he had arranged. His criticism during my presentations was always whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, designed to rattle my confidence when I was most vulnerable. A bit derivative, don't you think, Miss Lee? Or, are you sure of that calculation? Little darts of doubt delivered with a benign smile. I even remember the odd discomfort of important meetings in his office. He'd always position me in a particular chair, directly under an air conditioning vent that seemed to be permanently set to Arctic. I'd be shivering, trying to focus on complex academic discussions, while he sat comfortably in his insulated corner. A small thing, perhaps, but it was part of a larger pattern of keeping me slightly off balance, slightly disadvantaged. It was only late in my first life, piecing together fragments of overheard conversations and old university financial reports, that I stumbled upon the connection. Professor Park had received significant research grants, anonymous donations, that suspiciously coincided with periods when Lee Corp was looking to expand its R&D donations facilitated by my father. Dad had wanted me to succeed, but on his terms, in his shadow. Professor Park was his man on the inside, ensuring my brilliance was managed, kept on a leash. What did Professor Park owe my father? It wasn't just about the money, though that was surely part of it. It was about access, influence, the quiet power that came from being indebted to a man like Chairman Lee. My father hadn't just bought his loyalty, he'd bought a gatekeeper for my potential, ensuring I wouldn't outshine the family business, or worse, become a competitor. The professor who was supposed to be nurturing my talent was, in fact, a carefully chosen instrument of my father's subtle control. Jun-ho. Kim Jun-ho. He was handsome, ambitious, and seemingly devoted. In my first life, he was my rock, or so I believed. Looking back, his support was always conveniently absent when I truly needed it. A major project deadline looming? He'd have a family emergency. A crucial networking event? He'd be stuck in traffic. His excuses were always plausible, his apologies heartfelt, but the pattern was undeniable. Our relationship, I realized with the bitter clarity of Rebirth, was primarily a strategic move for him. His family owned a mid-sized manufacturing company, and they were eager for a supply contract with Lee Corp. Dating the chairman's daughter was his golden ticket. He wasn't interested in me, Ariam, the scientist, the innovator. He was interested in Ariam Lee, the conduit to power. His sabotage was subtle, insidious. He'd help with my projects, and somehow files would get corrupted. Research notes would go missing. Deadlines would be jeopardized. He'd then swoop in, playing the hero, helping me pick up the pieces, making me feel dependent on his calm competence. "Don't worry, Jagia," he'd murmur, his touch reassuring. "We'll fix this together." That touch, once a comfort, now felt like a spider's web. When no one was watching, when the performance wasn't necessary, the warmth in his eyes would fade. His touch would become absent-minded, almost dismissive. The final, crushing blow in my first life was discovering his secret meetings with Mina. I'd come home early one day planning to surprise him, and found them in a cafe near my apartment, heads bent close together, laughing. It wasn't a romantic liaison, I sensed that instinctively. It was conspiratorial. They looked up, startled, their composed faces failing to hide a flash of guilt. Mina had recovered quickly, her smile bright and brittle. "Oh, Ariam, Junho was just giving me some advice about a business matter." Junho had merely nodded, his expression unreadable. What were he and my sister planning behind my back? In my first life, I never truly found out before. Well, before everything ended. But now I could see the threads. Mina, always eager to consolidate her position as the favored child, and Junho, desperate for advancement. They were two sides of the same coin, both willing to use me, to manipulate me, to ensure I remained firmly in my place. The image of their joined laughter, the shared secrets in their eyes, fueled a cold resolve within me. This time, I would be the one pulling the strings. The call came on a Tuesday. Dad. Ariam, something unavoidable has come up. I'm so sorry, but we'll have to reschedule our lunch. His voice was brisk, already moving on. Oh, what is it? I kept my tone light, casual. It's the Kims, Junho's parents. They're in town unexpectedly, and it's a good chance to finalize some details about the new joint venture. You understand business? I understood perfectly. The joint venture was a thinly veiled attempt by Junho's family to secure a more permanent tie to Lee Corp, and Dad was dangling the position he'd once vaguely promised me, head of the new tech innovation department, as bait. The position Junho was now clearly angling for with Dad's blessing. The bitter taste of the coffee I'd been nursing, now cold and forgotten, filled my mouth. I was sitting alone at the little bistro where we were supposed to meet, the second chair starkly empty. Again. A week later, Mina struck. I'd been developing an innovative AI-driven logistics solution, a project I was genuinely passionate about. Details, specific algorithms I'd only shared within what I thought was a secure internal server, suddenly appeared as the cornerstone of a flashy presentation by a fledgling startup competitor, a competitor Mina had recently discovered and was vocally championing at society dinners. The leak was clean, untraceable, but her smug little smile when she'd asked me about my progress on the logistics front told me everything I needed to know. Then it was Gia's turn. At the monthly department presentation, where I was due to showcase the initial positive data from a new user interface I'd designed, Gia stepped up to the podium first. Due to Ariam feeling a little under the weather, she announced, her voice dripping with false concern, I'll be presenting our team's latest findings on the UI project. My project, my findings. She delivered it flawlessly, taking all the credit, basking in the department head's praise. I sat in the back, a picture of stunned silence, which she would later spin as me being overwhelmed and fragile. Professor Park wasn't far behind. The coveted research grant, the one that would have allowed me to explore a breakthrough in sustainable energy I'd theorized, was awarded to another student. A student known more for his diligent note-taking of Park's lectures than for any original thought. Park had patted my shoulder. Next time, Ariam, your theory is ambitious. Perhaps a bit too much for this funding cycle. His eyes, however, held a flicker of something else satisfaction. And Junho. Dear Junho, we had a crucial investor meeting, the kind that could make or break my new independent venture. The presentation was on my laptop, meticulously prepared, triple backed up. Or so I thought. As I was about to connect to the projector, the screen flickered, then went black. Oh my God, Ariam, what happened? Junho gasped, rushing to my side, feigning panic. Did you forget to save it properly? He'd accidentally tripped over the power cord the night before while I was sleeping, he later confessed, probably corrupting the drive. My cloud backup? Mysteriously inaccessible due to a server error he'd tried to fix for me. I looked at their faces in my mind one by one. Dad's casual dismissal, Mina's triumphant smirk, Gia's concerned facade, Professor Park's patronizing pat, Junho's wide-eyed innocence. They all expected me to crumble, to cry, to rage. They expected the old Ariam. How would I respond when everyone expected me to break down? They had no idea who they were dealing with anymore. When Dad called later that evening, his voice laced with that familiar, forced joviality, I was the picture of understanding. Don't worry about lunch, Dad. Finalizing the Kim deal is much more important. I completely get it. I could almost hear his sigh of relief through the phone. Good girl. To Mina, I sent a bouquet of her favorite lilies, the expensive, exotic kind. The card read, heard about the startup's fantastic new logistics system. Such creative thinking. You have a real eye for talent, sis. So proud of you for backing a winner. Her reply was a single smug emoji. Perfect. Gia received an earnest email. Gia, thank you so much for stepping in today. I really wasn't feeling myself. You presented the UI findings brilliantly, much better than I ever could have. Let me know if you need any of my background notes for the follow-up report. Happy to help you shine. I even CC'd the department head. Her grateful, slightly condescending reply was exactly what I wanted. Professor Park got a deferential visit. Professor, I said, my voice humble, thank you for your wisdom regarding the grant. You were right. Perhaps my theory needs more foundational work. I appreciate you guiding me away from a potential failure. He puffed up visibly, offering a few platitudes about patience and perseverance. And Junho? I threw my arms around him that night. Oh, Junho, thank goodness you were there. I would have died of embarrassment. It's just a presentation, I can recreate it. It'll be even better this time thanks to your support. I kissed him, a quick, grateful peck, ignoring the faint, triumphant gleam in his eyes. I smiled through it all, a quiet, understanding, almost serene smile. The tightness in my jaw was the only betraying sign of the storm brewing beneath. They saw acceptance, they saw weakness. They saw the old Arium, easily placated, easily dismissed. What I was planning behind my calm exterior was a symphony of their own making, and the first notes were about to be played. Dad's rescheduled makeup lunch with Junho and his parents was at a very exclusive, very private dining room. So private, in fact, that they never noticed the discreet audio recorder I'd managed to have planted via a grateful junior chef I'd once helped with a culinary school application. Dad was in fine form, expansive, charming. Young Junho here, his voice boomed, clearly audible on the playback, is exactly the kind of forward-thinking leader we need for the new tech division. Consider the position his, Mr. Kim. A formality, really. The position meant for me. The clinking of champagne glasses that followed was a delightful punctuation mark. For Mina's pet startup, the one now boasting my leaked AI algorithms, I became an anonymous benefactor. Through a series of shell corporations and blind trust skills, I'd picked up in my first life managing some of Dad's more creative investments. I funneled a significant amount of capital to their direct competitor. A competitor who, with this sudden influx of cash and a few inspired new hires, also thanks to my discreet headhunting, would soon be launching a far superior logistics platform. Mina thought she was playing chess. She had no idea I was about to flip the entire board. Gia, bless her ambitious heart, actually took me up on my offer for my background notes for her follow-up report on the UI project. The notes I provided were thorough, detailed, and riddled with tiny, almost imperceptible errors in data interpretation and sourcing. Errors that would make her look incredibly foolish under scrutiny. Errors that a true expert would spot, but a plagiarist relying on stolen glory might miss. I even helped her format the presentation slides, embedding a few digital watermarks of my own original file creation dates, just in case. Professor Park's academic fraud wasn't hard to find once I knew where to look. In my first life, I'd been too intimidated, too trusting. This time, I dug. Old student theses he'd co-authored with suspiciously similar conclusions to his own later publications. Grants awarded for research that never materialized. Whispers from former colleagues I'd tracked down, tales of intellectual property quietly absorbed. I compiled it all, a neat little package of dates, documents, and testimonies, ready for an anonymous tip to the university's ethics committee. And Junho. Sweet, deceitful Junho. While he was helping me recreate my lost presentation, I was busy. I'd always known he was a little too smooth with his explanations about my tech glitches. This time, I installed a hidden keylogger on my own system before he'd fixed it. The evidence of him systematically deleting specific file paths, then searching for data recovery tools to feign an attempt to help, was damning. I backed it up to multiple secure off-site locations. His protestations of an accident would sound very hollow indeed. The metallic click of my laptop closing each night, after another piece of the puzzle was set, was becoming my favorite sound. It was the sound of control, the sound of inevitability. When would they realize what I'd done? Soon. Very soon. The emergency board meeting at Lee Corp was convened with unusual haste. Dad, looking flustered, tried to steer the agenda, but an anonymous source had already circulated a very interesting audio file. His voice promising the head of the new tech division, a division heavily touted to investors as being spearheaded by internal family talent, meaning me, according to previous announcements, to Junho Kim, echoed through the stunned boardroom. The recording ended with the distinct sound of champagne glasses clinking in celebration with the Kims. Dad's face went from red to a pasty white. His carefully constructed image of impartial leadership was cracking. Mina's panic was a sight to behold. Just as her favored startup was preparing for its grand launch, their competitor, the one I'd secretly funded, announced a revolutionary breakthrough in AI logistics. Their platform was sleeker, faster, more efficient, and already had two major industry players signed on. Mina's calls to her contacts went unanswered. The buzz around her project died overnight, replaced by whispers of her poor judgment and inability to spot real innovation. Her tearful, furious call to me, "Did you know about this, Ariam? How could they be so far ahead?" was music to my ears. I feigned complete surprise, of course. Gia's humiliation was beautifully public. During her follow-up presentation to the executive committee, armed with her data, the questions started. Senior analyst IM, a woman known for her sharp eye and sharper tongue, began to pick apart the subtle errors in Gia's report. "Miss Anne, are you quite sure about this correlation? My understanding of the baseline data suggests otherwise." Gia stammered, fumbled through my deliberately flawed notes, her confident facade crumbling with each pointed inquiry. The embedded watermarks on her slides, when later discovered by IT during a routine check, would simply be the cherry on top. Professor Park received a discreet summons from the university's academic board. An anonymous tip, they said, had raised certain questions about the originality of some of his published works. He blustered, denied, but the nervous sweat beading on his upper lip was evident even over the fuzzy video call I later managed to glimpse a recording of. The carefully curated evidence package was doing its work. His reputation, once pristine, was now teetering. Junho's confrontation was more private but no less satisfying. His father, Mr. Kim, a man who valued integrity above all else, at least publicly, had also received an anonymous data file. It contained the keylogger records, neatly time-stamped, showing Junho's deliberate actions in sabotaging my presentation, followed by his frantic attempts to cover his tracks. When confronted by his apoplectic father, Junho's smooth explanations apparently fell on deaf ears. The stammering, panicked denials reported back to me via a gleeful informant within the Kim household were a sweet reward. A cool wave of satisfaction washed over me as I watched the chaos unfold from a distance. Each of them caught in a trap of their own making, their betrayals now biting back. The question wasn't if they would try to fix the damage, but how pathetically. How will they try to repair the damage? Dad was the first. A ridiculously large bouquet of out-of-season peonies arrived at my apartment, followed by a sleek, expensive new tablet, the kind he knew I'd never buy for myself. No note, just the gifts, impersonal and ostentatious. Later that evening, he called. "Ariam, about that board meeting, a misunderstanding, stress. You know how these things get twisted." He didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He just expected the gesture, the sheer monetary value of his offering, to smooth things over. The tablet remained in its box, the peonies already starting to wilt. Mina tried tears. She appeared at my door, mascara artfully smudged, her voice trembling. "Ariam, I had no idea that other company was so advanced. I feel like such a fool." She wrung her hands. "It's just, Dad put so much pressure on me to be successful, to make the right connections. I just wanted him to be proud." She didn't mention the leaked algorithms. She didn't apologize for trying to sabotage me. It was all about her stress, her burden. Gia opted for bewildered innocence. She cornered me in the office pantry, her eyes wide with feigned hurt. "Ariam, I don't understand what happened in that meeting. Those analysts were so aggressive. I must have just misunderstood your notes. It was all a terrible misunderstanding. You know I'd never try to take credit for your work intentionally." Her voice dripped with sincerity, but her eyes darted around, checking who might be listening. Professor Park's approach was more academic. He emailed me, offering an exclusive opportunity to co-author a new paper with him, a chance to get my name on a publication in a prestigious journal. "I've been thinking, Aryam," he wrote, "your ambitious theories have merit. Perhaps with my guidance, we can refine them." No mention of the ethics committee, no hint of his precarious situation. Just a sudden, convenient interest in my merit. And Junho. Oh, Junho. He staged a grand romantic gesture. A surprise dinner reservation at the city's trendiest new restaurant. A diamond bracelet clasped on my wrist before I could protest. "Aryam," he murmured, his voice husky, his eyes pleading. "That whole presentation fiasco. It was an accident, I swear. My father overreacted. Please, let's not let this come between us." The bracelet felt cold against my skin. His agenda, to salvage the connection to Lee Corp through me, was as transparent as the flawless diamonds. Their excuses, their gifts, their tearful explanations echoed hollowly in the minimalist hallway of my apartment. Each attempt was a fresh layer of insult, a testament to their belief in my naivety, my supposed willingness to forgive and forget. Will I accept their apologies or escalate? That wasn't even a question. This was just the first cycle. The game had only just begun. The dust from the first round of fallout had barely settled when Dad found a new way to disappoint. I was invited to give the keynote speech at the annual Tech Innovators Summit, a significant honor, one that should have made him proud. He promised Aryam I wouldn't miss this for the world. My daughter, the keynote speaker. The words felt rehearsed even then. On the day, as I stood backstage, heart hammering, a harried-looking junior assistant from Lee Corp rushed up to me. "Miss Lee, your father sends his deepest apologies. A last-minute crisis with the European distributors. He's sent me to represent the family and take notes." The assistant clutched a Lee Corp branded notepad like a shield. The crisis, I later found out, was a golf game with a minor European dignitary. The familiar ache was back, sharper this time because, fool that I was, a tiny part of me had actually believed him. Mina's methods evolved. She stopped with direct sabotage of my projects. Too risky now, perhaps. Instead, she targeted my burgeoning network. I'd line up meetings with potential investors for my independent ventures, only to have them cancel at the last minute, full of vague apologies. One, bolder than the rest, let it slip. "Your sister, Miss Mina Lee, shared some concerns about your venture's stability. Said you were overextended." She was poisoning the well, painting me as erratic and unreliable, all while maintaining an air of concerned, sisterly affection to my face. "Aryam, are you sure you're not taking on too much? You look tired," she'd say, her brow furrowed with fake sympathy. Gia, now walking on eggshells at work after her public humiliation, found a more insidious way to strike. She started spreading rumors, quiet whispers in the hallways, concerned comments to mutual acquaintances. "Aryam's been under so much stress since her birth into the tech scene. She's not quite herself, so intense, almost paranoid." She was building a narrative of my mental instability, a clever way to discredit any future accusations I might make against her or anyone else. It was the kind of attack that was almost impossible to fight directly. Professor Park, meanwhile, had seemingly weathered the initial storm of the ethics inquiry, which had been, as these things often are, quietly shelved due to insufficient direct evidence, thanks to his powerful connections. Emboldened, he published a paper in a moderately respected academic journal. A paper outlining a theoretical framework remarkably similar to the ambitious research I'd once proposed to him for the grant he'd denied me. He didn't even bother to change the core concepts significantly, just cloaked them in more convoluted academic jargon. He was taking direct credit for my ideas, banking on my previous silence. And Junho, just as I was on the verge of securing a major career opportunity, a partnership that would have catapulted my independent company into the big leagues, he proposed. It was a grand public spectacle. Down on one knee in the middle of my favorite park, a string quartet appearing as if from nowhere, a stunning diamond ring that must have cost a fortune. "Aryam Lee, you are my world. Marry me," he'd declared, his voice thick with emotion for the assembled crowd of onlookers and the photographer he'd conveniently hired. It was perfectly timed to distract me, to pull my focus, to perhaps even make my potential new partners see me as settling down rather than a dynamic businesswoman on the rise. As he slid the ring onto my finger, He leaned in and whispered, "And I got you lilies, your favorite." He knew I was allergic to lilies. The sharp, cloying scent of the massive bouquet his assistant produced was already making my eyes water. What makes these betrayals more painful than the first cycle? It was the calculated cruelty, the deliberate targeting of not just my career, but my reputation, my emotional well-being. They weren't just being opportunistically deceitful anymore. They were actively trying to break me, to put me back in the little box they'd designed for me. At the Tech Innovator Summit, when Dad's assistant scurried away after delivering his flimsy excuse, I took a deep breath. I walked onto that stage, smiled at the packed auditorium, and began my keynote. "I'd like to thank my father, Chairman Lee," I said, my voice clear and steady, "for his unwavering support. Though a critical business crisis has prevented him from being here today, he sent his trusted aide, Mr. Choi, to represent the family and convey his pride. Mr. Choi, thank you for being here." I gestured to the flustered assistant in the front row, who looked like he wanted the earth to swallow him whole. The applause was warm, appreciative of my graciousness. Mina's attempts to sabotage my investor relations were frustrating, but I adapted. For every investor she scared away with her whispers, I found two more, often in unconventional places, outside her usual social hunting grounds. I even helped her, offering to introduce her to some of my less promising leads. "Mina, you have such a good instinct for these things," I'd say. "Maybe you can see potential where I can't." Let her waste her energy. With Gia and her rumor mongering, I decided to feed the beast. I'd confide in her, my voice hushed, my eyes wide with manufactured anxiety. "Gia, I don't know what's wrong with me lately. I feel so on edge, like everyone's watching me." I'd hint at sleepless nights, at imagined slights. She lapped it up, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of pity and triumph. The more outlandish her rumors became, the less credible she would appear when the truth eventually surfaced. Professor Park's plagiarism was infuriating. But instead of confronting him, I sent him a congratulatory email. "Dear Professor Park, I just read your latest publication. Absolutely brilliant. It's fascinating how your framework aligns with some of the early theoretical work I was exploring a while back. Clearly, great minds think alike. Such an honor to have studied under you." His smug, dismissive reply, thanking me for my continued interest in serious scholarship, was exactly the evidence I needed. And Junho's proposal? I gasped, I cried. A few crocodile tears for effect. I flung my arms around his neck. "Yes, Junho, yes, I'll marry you." The crowd cheered. The photographer's flashbulbs popped. I let him slide the enormous diamond onto my finger. It felt cold, heavy, like a beautiful, glittering handcuff. I smiled up at him, my heart a block of ice. "The lilies are beautiful, darling," I whispered, trying not to sneeze. "Though you know my allergies." He waved a dismissive hand. "A minor detail in the face of our happiness, my love." This phase wasn't just about calm acceptance. It was about gathering string. Every faked smile, every feigned confidence, every apparent submission was a chance to observe, to record, to understand the full scope of their tactics. What information am I gathering during this phase? Everything. Their methods, their justifications, their blind spots. And most importantly, the evidence of their escalating malice. The video montage was a masterpiece of quiet damnation. For months, I'd been subtly recording Dad. Not just his absences, but his pronouncements. His speeches at charity galas about family first, his interviews praising work-life balance, his private remarks to business associates about children needing a firm hand, not constant coddling. Juxtaposed with a timeline of every missed birthday, graduation, award ceremony, and my keynote, all marked with his actual whereabouts. Golf courses, urgent meetings that were actually leisurely lunches, overseas trips that conveniently coincided with my milestones. The final touch was footage from the Father of the Year award dinner he'd attended. Beaming, just weeks before skipping my national award, Mina's sabotaged investors, the ones she'd scared away from my ventures. I had my new independent team compile a comprehensive counterproposal. My business plan was sharper, my projections more robust, my technology demonstrably superior. We approached them again, not with apologies, but with facts and a quiet confidence that highlighted the amateurish nature of Mina's concerns. Several of them, intrigued by my resilience and annoyed at being manipulated, were willing to listen. Gia's rumor spreading had become more blatant, more vicious. I'd been patient, letting her dig her own grave. I had multiple colleagues, initially swayed by her whispers, now willing to testify to her consistent, targeted campaign to undermine my professional reputation. Coupled with recordings of her confiding her concerns about my mental state to anyone who would listen, it formed a solid basis for a formal HR complaint. Defamation and creating a hostile work environment. Professor Park's published paper was his undoing. My congratulatory email, his dismissive reply, combined with my original dated research proposal, time-stamped digital files of my theoretical work, and even early email exchanges with him where I'd outlined the core concepts he now claimed as his own. It was all neatly packaged. This wasn't an anonymous tip to the university ethics board this time. This was a formal copyright infringement claim and a submission to a leading academic watchdog organization, complete with supporting evidence of his past indiscretions. Junho's grand proposal had one fatal flaw: his ego. He was so pleased with himself, so sure of my delighted acceptance, that he'd become careless. A little digging, a few discreet inquiries placed with contacts I'd cultivated, some even through his own unsuspecting network, revealed a fascinating pattern. My magnificent diamond ring wasn't unique. In fact, nearly identical rings from the same exclusive jeweler had recently been gifted to two other women, the daughters of two other wealthy industrialists, whose companies Junho's family were also keen to partner with. He wasn't just a two-timer, he was running a romantic Ponzi scheme. I made sure to get photographic evidence of the other rings, the other blissful fiancés. The rhythmic tapping of my fingers against my desk as each piece of this new, more potent counterattack fell into place was a soothing sound. The traps were more complex this time, the stakes higher. When will I reveal my collected evidence? The answer was simple: at the moment of their greatest perceived triumph, or my greatest perceived vulnerability. The video montage of Dad's family-first hypocrisy didn't just go to the board this time. It was anonymously leaked to a prominent business ethics blogger and a national news outlet known for its investigative journalism. The resulting articles, titled things like Chairman Lee's Family Values: A Closer Look and The Price of Empire, What Lee Corp's Leader Prioritizes, went viral. Suddenly, Dad wasn't just an absent father. He was a symbol of corporate duplicity. His carefully crafted public persona shattered. Shareholders started asking uncomfortable questions. His corporate values, so loudly trumpeted, were now a subject of public ridicule. The investors Mina had scared away didn't just quietly reconsider my proposal. Several of them, incensed at her blatant manipulation and impressed by my superior business plan, made a very public show of switching their allegiance. One even gave an interview praising my tenacity and vision in the face of underhanded tactics, without naming Mina directly, but the implication was crystal clear. Her reputation in the investment community took a nosedive. She was no longer seen as a savvy connector, but as a spiteful amateur. Gia's HR investigation concluded swiftly. The weight of evidence, witness testimonies, recordings of her slanderous comments was overwhelming. She was placed on formal probation, her chances of advancement within Lee Corp, or any reputable company, once word got out, reduced to zero. The official memo cited gross misconduct and behavior unbecoming of a Lee Corp employee. Her attempts to paint herself as a concerned friend now looked like malicious intent. Professor Park's world came crashing down. The academic watchdog organization launched a formal review, and this time the evidence was too public, too damning to be swept under the rug. His university, fearing a major scandal, suspended him pending the outcome. His colleagues distanced themselves. His brilliant paper was retracted by the journal with a statement citing concerns about academic integrity and originality. His carefully constructed career was in ruins. And Junho, Junho. Our engagement party was a lavish affair hosted by his proud parents, eager to celebrate the impending union with the Lee family. It was the perfect stage. Midway through the toast, as Junho was waxing lyrical about finding his one true love, a discreetly placed projector flickered to life. Not with loving photos of us, but with a slideshow. Photo after photo of him with fiancé number 2, then fiancé number 3. Close-ups of their identical engagement rings. Murmurs rippled through the stunned crowd. His parents' faces were a mask of horror. The other 2 fiancés, whom I'd anonymously invited with a tantalizing hint about comparing notes on our wonderful Junho, made their presence known at just the right moment. The ensuing chaos was spectacular. I stood by the open balcony doors of the empty party venue much later. After everyone, the furious Kims, the humiliated Junho, the bewildered guests, the other equally furious fiancés, had departed. The cool night air felt refreshing, clearing out the stale scent of expensive perfume and shattered dreams. This fallout was bigger, deeper. How will they try to retaliate? Or would they finally learn? Dad's response was swift and public. He called a press conference. Standing before a phalanx of microphones, his face grim, he claimed the leaked video montage was a vicious, manipulated attack by disgruntled elements seeking to harm Lee Corp. He spoke of out-of-context clips and digital trickery. He didn't deny missing my events, but reframed them as the agonizing choices any dedicated leader must make. He vowed to find those responsible for this smear campaign. It was a performance of righteous indignation, but his eyes held a new flicker of fear. Mina, predictably, tried the family unity card. She rushed to my apartment, tears streaming down her face, no longer artfully smudged, but genuinely distressed. Ariam, this is tearing the family apart. Dad is a wreck. People are saying horrible things. We need to present a united front. Please, tell the press, this is all a misunderstanding, that you support Dad. For the family, Ariam. Her plea was desperate, her focus solely on the family's image, not on her own actions or their consequences. Gia, facing professional ruin, took a different tack. She managed to get a meeting with me under the guise of needing to discuss transitioning her projects. She looked haggard. Ariam, she began, her voice low and shaky. I know how things look, but you have to believe me. I was trying to protect you. I thought the stress was getting to you, making you act erratically. I was worried someone would take advantage of you. My methods were wrong, I see that now, but my intentions were good. It was a pathetic attempt to reframe her malice as misguided care. Professor Park, surprisingly, offered a concession, or what he thought was one. Through his lawyer, he proposed to publicly issue a statement acknowledging my early foundational work that inspired certain aspects of his paper. He even offered to add me as a co-author on any future revisions, should the current unfortunate situation be resolved favorably. It was an admission of guilt wrapped in an arrogant attempt to bargain his way out of complete disgrace. Junho's explanation was perhaps the most audacious. After the engagement party disaster, he actually had the nerve to call me. Ariam, Jagia, those other women, they meant nothing. It was just business, strategic alliances. My parents were pressuring me. You're the one I truly love, the one I want to build a life with. He sounded genuinely convinced he could talk his way out of it, that just business excused everything. The sheer gall of it was almost impressive. I watched their frantic attempts to control the narrative, to mitigate the damage from a calm distance. Their panic was a stark contrast to my own steady heartbeat. Each desperate plea, each flimsy excuse, only solidified my resolve. Are any of their attempts at reconciliation genuine? It was laughably, tragically clear that they still didn't understand. They weren't sorry for what they'd done. They were sorry they'd gotten caught. While they were all scrambling, trying to repair their tattered reputations, I was quietly preparing for the real main event. The invitation had arrived 3 months ago, discreet and understated. I was to be the recipient of the prestigious National Innovation Laureate Award, the highest honor in the country for scientific and technological advancement. This wasn't just an industry award, this was the award. The one that came with national recognition, substantial research funding, and a seat at tables where real power resided. I kept it a secret from my family, every single one of them. Instead, I focused on the arrangements. I hired the best PR firm in the country, not to publicize me, but to ensure maximum, unavoidable coverage of the ceremony. Yes, it would be broadcast live on all major national channels. Yes, there would be international media present. And Dad? Oh, I made sure his VIP invitation was hand-delivered by a personal courier. It was a beautiful thing, thick cardstock, embossed with gold lettering. Chairman Lee Woojin, honored guest and father of the laureate. I even called him myself. Dad, I said, my voice carefully neutral, there's an award ceremony. It's rather important. I'd really like you to be there. Of course, Ariam, of course, he'd boomed, a little too heartily. The recent negative press had clearly rattled him, and he was eager for any opportunity to appear the supportive father. I wouldn't miss it. Send me the details. I'll clear my schedule no matter what. His promise echoed in my ears. No matter what. The smooth, cool texture of the invitation card in my hand felt like a loaded gun. What makes this award different from others? This one wasn't just about me. This one was about us and the empire he thought he still controlled. The day of the ceremony arrived, bright and clear. I felt a strange calm as I went through hair and makeup, the hushed efficiency of my team a soothing balm. There were no frantic calls from Dad's assistant this time. Instead, precisely 1 hour before I was due to leave for the venue, a text message pinged on my phone. Dad. Ariam, terrible news. Emergency board meeting called by some agitated shareholders. Can't be avoided, so terribly sorry. We'll make it up to you. Proud of you. I smiled. Predictable. My fingers flew across the screen in reply. Don't worry, Dad. It's already taken care of. His reply was a single question mark, but I didn't elaborate. The auditorium was even grander than the last one, filled with the nation's most influential figures. As the presenter began the introduction for the National Innovation Laureate, a hush fell over the crowd. My name was called. The spotlight found me. Applause thundered, and as I walked towards the stage, my gaze drifted to the front row. Row 1, center seat, prominently empty, a small, elegant sign resting upon it. Chairman Lee Woojin. The cameras, meticulously positioned by my PR team, lingered on that empty chair for a beat too long, broadcasting his absence nationwide. Just as I'd planned. But that was only the overture. What did I mean by taken care of? He was about to find out. I reached the podium, the applause washing over me. I took a moment, looked out at the sea of faces, then directly into the main broadcast camera. Thank you, I began, my voice resonating with a newfound strength. It is an incredible honor to receive this award for my work in sustainable technology and AI-driven innovation. I paused, letting the anticipation build. Many of you know Lee Corp, one of the nation's leading conglomerates, built by my father, Chairman Lee Woojin. Another pause. The camera would be on his empty chair again, then back to me. What many of you don't know, I continued, my voice dropping slightly, drawing the audience in, is that for the past 5 years, Lee Corp's most aggressive and innovative competitor in the green tech sector, Future Symbiotics, has been quietly gaining market share, securing critical patents, and attracting top global talent. I saw a ripple of confusion, then dawning interest in the audience. In his emergency board meeting, Dad's phone would be buzzing with alerts from his PR team, his executives. Why is she talking about our competitor? Future Symbiotics, I announced, my voice ringing with clarity, was founded and funded by an anonymous investor, someone who believed in a different way of doing business, a more agile, ethical, and truly innovative approach. I leaned into the microphone. Tonight, I am stepping out of the shadows. I am that anonymous investor. I am the founder and majority shareholder of Future Symbiotics. Gasps rippled through the auditorium like a physical wave. On the monitors backstage, I could see the live feed from the news channels, my face juxtaposed with the Future Symbiotics logo. Furthermore, I wasn't finished. The portfolio of advanced energy storage patents that Lee Corp has been desperately trying to acquire for the past 18 months, they belong to a private research foundation, a foundation I established. They are not for sale, especially not to a company whose leadership has, shall we say, demonstrated a resistance to genuine forward momentum. Dad, watching from his boardroom, would be seeing his empire teeter. His phone would be exploding. And one final piece of news, I smiled. A genuine, wide smile this time. Through strategic proxy buying over the last 2 years, using the profits from future symbiotics and other independent ventures, I have acquired a controlling interest, 51% to be exact, in Lee Corp. The silence in the auditorium was absolute, then erupted into a cacophony of shocked murmurs. How long have I been planning this takeover? Ever since I came back. Ever since I realized that waiting for him to see me, to value me, was a fool's errand. If I wanted a seat at the table, I'd have to buy the whole damn company. It started in my first life, that last desperate year. I'd stumbled upon some misplaced files, financials Dad never meant for me to see. Lee Corp was leveraged to the hilt, teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, propped up by risky loans and Dad's increasingly desperate gambles. He was a brilliant builder, but a reckless gambler when cornered. He'd been trying to hide it, to project an image of unassailable strength, even as the cracks were showing. My death in that life had been an accident, a stupid, meaningless car crash, but I often wondered if the stress of it all hadn't contributed. After my rebirth, armed with that terrible knowledge and a burning desire for a different outcome, I'd moved methodically. Every investment, every research project, every quiet acquisition was a step towards this moment. I used my future knowledge of market trends, of technological breakthroughs, to build future symbiotics from nothing into a powerhouse. I played the long game patiently, silently. Mina would soon discover that her cushy executive position at Lee Corp, the one she'd lorded over me for years, was now entirely dependent on my approval. Her access to the company credit card, her expense account, her corner office, all subject to review by me. Gia, already on probation, would realize that the fragile, paranoid woman she'd tried to discredit now held her entire career trajectory in the palm of her hand. Professor Park, disgraced and suspended, would understand that the student he'd tried to keep mediocre had outmaneuvered him on a scale he couldn't have imagined. And Junho, with his multiple fiancés and shattered ambitions, would see that the distracted, emotional woman he'd tried to manipulate was the one who had just orchestrated the business coup of the decade. The sharp intake of breath from viewers nationwide, the stunned faces in the auditorium, the frantic scrambling in the Lee Corp boardroom, it was a symphony of shifted power. I had exposed their betrayals, yes, but this was more than revenge. This was reclamation. This was survival. This was ensuring that the legacy my father had built and nearly destroyed would not only endure but evolve. Will I destroy what they built or offer mercy? The question wasn't about destruction. It was about transformation. The broadcast ended moments after my speech. Dad didn't wait for the end of his sham emergency board meeting. He raced to the award ceremony venue, his face ashen, sirens faintly audible in the background as his driver broke every speed limit. He burst into the VIP reception area, wild-eyed and breathless, searching for me. He found me not alone, celebrating with champagne, but in a quiet anteroom, already in discussion with several key Lee Corp board members, the ones who had been genuinely concerned about the company's direction, the ones whose proxies I now controlled. They looked up as he entered, their expressions polite but distant. "Arium!" he gasped, his voice hoarse. "What is the meaning of this? Future symbiotics, controlling interest? This is insane!" I met his gaze calmly. "It's called a strategic acquisition, Father, and a necessary one." One of the board members, a pragmatic woman named Miss Choi, cleared her throat. "Chairman Lee, perhaps you should sit down. We were just discussing the future leadership of Lee Corp." It was then that the full weight of it seemed to hit him. His eyes darted between me and the board members. He saw no allies there. He saw the new reality. He saw that while he was busy ignoring me, missing my milestones, underestimating my intelligence and resolve, I had been quietly, meticulously saving his company. From his own reckless decisions, from impending irrelevance. The cold sweat beaded on his forehead as he finally understood. He wasn't Chairman Lee, the powerful patriarch, anymore. He was just a shareholder in a company now controlled by his daughter. "The board has reviewed the situation, Father," I said, my voice even. "And the preliminary vote is in." I paused. "I have been appointed the new chairwoman of Lee Corporation, effective immediately." The fight drained out of him. He sank into a nearby chair, his expensive suit suddenly looking too big for him. He looked old, defeated. For a fleeting moment, a pang of something like pity stirred within me, but I pushed it away. This wasn't about pity. This was about a new beginning. Now that I have everything, what will I do with my betrayers? That was the question on everyone's mind, especially his. A week later, he requested a private meeting. He walked into my new office, his old office, the expansive suite overlooking the city, and the familiar, suffocating scent of his expensive cologne seemed faded, less potent, almost sad. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. "Ariam," he began, his voice low, stripped of its usual bluster. I, I've had time to think, to understand." He looked around the room at the changes I'd already begun to make. Lighter colors, modern art, an open, collaborative workspace instead of his imposing mahogany desk. "You outplayed me. You saved the company. I see that now." He met my eyes. "I failed you, Ariam, as a father, and, it seems, as a businessman. I was blind, arrogant." He swallowed hard. "I want to make amends. Anything. Tell me what I can do. I'll step down completely. I'll support you in any way you ask." I listened, my expression unreadable. The words I'd longed to hear for a lifetime, now offered in defeat. I leaned back in my chair, my chair. "No," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "There's nothing for you to do. Your advice on past ventures might be useful in a limited advisory capacity for the historical archives of the International Division, perhaps, but your active presence in the company's future is no longer required or desired." The silence stretched, his face crumpled just a little. What will happen to him now? He would live with the consequences of his choices, just as I had lived with the consequences of his for so long. He would be a footnote in the story of Lee Corp's resurgence, not its author. Mina's approach was different. She didn't request a formal meeting. She ambushed me as I was leaving the office late one evening, clutching a worn photo album. Tears streamed down her face, genuine this time, ugly and desperate. "Ariam, please!" she sobbed, thrusting the album at me. Pictures of us as children, awkward family holidays, forced smiles. "Don't do this. Don't shut me out. I know I was awful. I was jealous, okay?" "Dad." He always compared us. You were the smart one, the serious one. I just wanted his approval, just a little piece of it for myself. She clutched my arm. "I can help you, Ariam. I know the social scene, the connections. I can support you publicly, privately. We're sisters, family." The hollow sound of her voice echoed in the minimalist lobby. Family, a word she'd used as both a shield and a weapon. I gently removed her hand from my arm. "No, Mina." My voice was soft but unyielding. "I don't need that kind of help. I succeeded despite your efforts to undermine me, not because of any support you might now belatedly offer. You wanted Dad's approval? Go earn it. Or, better yet, earn your own approval. Build something for yourself, by yourself. Then we can talk about what a family means." She stared at me, speechless, the photo album slipping from her grasp. Can she rebuild her life without family connections? Without the Lee Corp safety net? That was her challenge now, not mine. Gia managed to get through to my new assistant, pleading for 5 minutes. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. The ambition that had once burned so brightly in her eyes was replaced by a dull, desperate fear. She broke down almost immediately. "Ariam, I am so sorry." Sobs racked her body. "Everything I did. It was because I was insecure. I came from nothing, you know. My family, they sacrificed so much for me to even get to university. I was so desperate to succeed, to prove myself, to make them proud." She looked up, her face streaked with mascara. "I was a terrible friend. I see that now. But I can make it right. I'll do anything. I can be loyal, truly loyal. I know things. I hear things in the company. I can be useful to you." Her confession, her difficult background, it tugged at something, a flicker of the old empathy. But it was quickly extinguished by the memory of her calculated betrayals. No, Gia, I said, my voice even. Your performance was never the issue. Your ambition in itself wasn't the flaw, it was the dishonesty, the willingness to step on others to get ahead. I value honesty, genuine integrity, far above performance or transactional loyalty. I paused. Your probation stands. Perhaps this is an opportunity for you to learn a different way to achieve your goals. She stared at me, aghast. Will she use what she knows or thinks she knows against me now? Let her try. Her credibility was shot. Her currency was worthless. Professor Park, through his beleaguered lawyer, requested a formal meeting to discuss potential resolutions. He looked considerably humbled, his academic tweed jacket appearing rumpled, his eyes carrying dark circles. He didn't apologize directly. Instead, he rationalized. Miss Lee, Ariam, you must understand the pressures I was under. Your father, Chairman Lee, he was a very influential man. His patronage came with certain expectations. He spread his hands, a gesture of helplessness. He wanted you to succeed, of course, but in a managed way. He was concerned about you being overwhelmed, about distractions from the family business. He leaned forward, attempting a collegial tone. I am prepared to issue a full public retraction of my paper and a comprehensive acknowledgement of your foundational research. We can frame it as a collaborative discovery, and, of course, I would be honored to offer you genuine mentorship to help guide your future research should you choose to continue in academia alongside your corporate responsibilities. The nervous tap of his fingers against the polished surface of my new conference table was the only sound for a moment. No, Professor, I said, my voice cool and clear. True educators build their students up. They don't hold them back to curry favor or manage their potential. Your offer to co-author or mentor me now is insulting. The academic community will render its own judgment on your past actions based on the evidence. How will the academic community react to his exposed fraud? His career was likely over, and he had no one to blame but himself and the benefactor whose strings he had so willingly danced to. Junho's audacity knew no bounds. A week after the engagement party fiasco, as I was walking through the Lee Corp lobby, he appeared as if from a cheesy romantic comedy. He was holding an enormous bouquet of roses. He'd learned his lesson about lilies, at least, and a ridiculously oversized teddy bear. He even had a small string trio playing softly in the corner. How he'd managed to arrange that, I had no idea. He dropped to one knee right there in front of the entire lunchtime crowd. Ariam Lee! My magnificent, brilliant Ariam. I was a fool. A blind, idiotic fool. His voice projected through the cavernous space. Those other women, those other arrangements. They were nothing. They were the machinations of my family, of business pressures you, more than anyone, can understand. He reached for my hand. I realized, in losing you, that I truly fell in love. Despite the initial motives, despite everything, my heart is yours. Give me another chance. Not just as your husband, but as your partner. I have a new business proposal, a way for our families, our companies, to merge our strengths. We can be a true power couple. The artificial scent of his too-strong cologne, different from Dad's but just as cloying, wafted towards me as he leaned in, his eyes wide and pleading. Employees were stopping, whispering, some even filming with their phones. I looked down at him, this handsome, charming, utterly faithless man. No, Junho, I said, my voice carrying easily in the sudden hush. I didn't try to pull my hand away, I simply let it rest, unresponsive, in his grasp. Love doesn't calculate return on investment, and partnerships require trust. You've demonstrated an inability to comprehend either. I gently withdrew my hand. Please excuse me. I have a company to run. I walked away, leaving him kneeling there amidst the roses and the stunned silence, the sad strains of the string trio fading behind me. Who will I choose to have in my new life? People who valued Ariam, not Lee. People who offered honesty, not agendas. And none of them were here today. 1 year later, the sun streams through the expansive windows of my office. Dad's old office, now transformed into a space that feels like mine, light, airy, and filled with the quiet hum of productive energy. Lee Corp, under its new name, Lee Future Horizon Group, is flourishing. We've divested from the outdated, ethically questionable ventures Dad clung to and heavily invested in sustainable technologies, innovative healthcare, and ethical AI, the very fields I'm passionate about. Our stock price is at an all-time high. I sip my coffee. I brew it myself each morning, a small ritual of independence. No assistance needed for that. My first major initiative as chairwoman was establishing a company-wide mentorship program specifically designed to identify and nurture overlooked talent, the kind of people who, like me, might have been stifled under the old regime. We call them the Arium Fellows. Dad? He has a small, largely ceremonial role as an advisor to the International Historical Archives Division. He sends polite, infrequent emails. The suffocating scent of his cologne is now just a distant memory. Reconciliation with Mina has been a slow, tentative process. After hitting rock bottom, she did something unexpected. She started a small, independent catering business, focusing on healthy, locally sourced food. It's hard work, and she's struggling. But for the first time, I see a flicker of genuine pride in her eyes, something that isn't tied to Dad's approval or social standing. We have dinner once a month. The conversation is sometimes strained, but it's real. We're establishing new boundaries, learning to be sisters without the shadows of the past. My relationship with Dad remains professional. There's a degree of respect now, born from his grudging acknowledgement of my capabilities, but the emotional chasm is likely too wide to ever fully bridge. And that's okay. I've found my family elsewhere, in my loyal, brilliant team at Lee Future Horizon, in a small circle of authentic friends who knew me before I was Chairwoman Lee, who value my dry wit more than my stock portfolio. Sunday dinners are no longer a command performance at the family estate. They're laughter-filled gatherings in my home with people who choose to be there, the comforting aroma of homemade meals shared with those who genuinely value my presence, not my position. I bought a small house by the sea, a quiet, unpretentious place with a wide balcony overlooking the ocean. I watch the sunsets from there, uninterrupted by urgent calls or demands on my time. The constant ping of messages has been replaced by the rhythmic sound of waves. I've started taking solo trips, exploring countries I only dreamed of visiting in my first life, when I was too busy trying to please everyone, or in my second, too focused on my meticulous plans. There's someone new in my life, an architect I met at a charity auction. He was there to donate his time, not to network. Our relationship is built on mutual respect, shared interests, and a refreshing independence. He finds my business acumen fascinating, and I admire his creative passion. There are no agendas, no hidden motives, just two people enjoying each other's company. Most mornings, I do yoga on my balcony, the salt air filling my lungs, feeling a sense of peace that once seemed impossible. The Arium Foundation is now fully operational, providing scholarships and grants to brilliant, under-resourced young innovators, particularly women in STEM. It's my way of ensuring that other overlooked talents get the chances I had to fight so hard for in 2 lifetimes. I finally published that memoir, not a tell-all about family drama, but a reflection on business ethics, authentic leadership, and the courage to forge your own path. It's doing surprisingly well. Last week, I gave a guest lecture at my old university in the main auditorium where Professor Park once tried to subtly diminish me. It was a talk about the future of sustainable technology. Afterwards, several bright-eyed students approached me, full of questions and ideas. One of them, a young woman with a fierce intelligence in her eyes, reminded me so much of my younger self. I made a note to connect her with one of our senior researchers. This afternoon, I'm leaving the office a little early. One of the first Arium Fellows is graduating at the top of her class. I promised her I'd be there. The framed certificate for her, which I'll present, is on my desk, the ink still feeling slightly warm from the printer. It's a small thing, attending a graduation, but it's a promise I made to myself in both lives, to celebrate achievements that matter, to show up for those who deserve it. Whether anyone else important shows up for me or not no longer dictates my happiness or my path. I show up for myself, and that, I've learned, is more than enough.